The radio cracked with a scream swallowed by gunfire, and the map on the command table was already bleeding red. 300 Allied soldiers were trapped in a valley that had become a furnace of smoke and steel, cut off by collapsing ridgelines and enemy armor tightening like a noose. The order came down cold and final: no rescue. Too risky. Too late. But two Marine sisters stood at the edge of that decision, staring at the flickering satellite feed, knowing that if they obeyed, 300 heartbeats would fade into silence before dawn. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances even when the world says it's impossible, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel, Bright Heart. Stories like this survive because you keep them alive. Captain Elena Reyes had always been the steadier of the two, the kind of Marine who memorized terrain patterns and carried responsibility like a second spine. At 32, her face bore the quiet lines of someone who had seen too much but refused to look away. Her younger sister, Sergeant Marisol Reyes, 27, carried fire in her eyes and a scar along her jaw from their first deployment together. They had joined the Marines years apart, but war had a way of pulling blood closer. That night, as the operations tent hummed with tension, they stood shoulder to shoulder watching drone footage of smoke-choked ravines and scattered heat signatures blinking like dying stars. The trapped soldiers were from a coalition battalion that had advanced too far into the valley before the enemy sealed both exits with artillery. Supply lines were gone. Air support was grounded by a sudden storm sweeping in from the mountains. Command had calculated the odds and found them unforgiving. Sending a rescue convoy would likely mean losing another 200. The numbers were clean. The consequences were not. Elena felt the weight. The convoy moved out under cover of the storm, engines low, lights off. Rain lashed against armored windshields, turning the world into a blur of shadow and lightning. Elena led the route in the first vehicle, hands steady on the wheel, heart pounding in her throat. Marisol manned the communications gear, scanning frequencies for enemy chatter, her jaw set with determination. Every mile forward felt like stepping further away from safety and deeper into judgment. The canyon was worse than expected. Rocks had fallen in jagged heaps, forcing the engineer to leap out repeatedly under sheets of rain to clear a path. Mud swallowed tires to their rims. Once, the entire convoy stalled as artillery thundered somewhere beyond the ridge, the ground trembling beneath them. Elena closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, picturing the trapped battalion huddled behind makeshift barricades, ammunition running thin. She pressed the accelerator again. Hours later, as the storm began to thin into a cold drizzle, they reached the mouth of the valley. Smoke hung heavy over the landscape, and the distant crack of gunfire confirmed that the fight was still alive. Through binoculars, Elena saw movement, soldiers crouched behind overturned vehicles, returning fire in desperate bursts. 300 had become fewer, she could sense it even before the count. The sisters did not wait for perfect timing. They drove straight into the chaos. Enemy forces were stunned at first, not expecting reinforcements through what they believed was a sealed canyon. That shock bought seconds, and in war, seconds are lifetimes. Marisol coordinated suppressive fire while the medic team spilled out to reach the wounded. Elena directed vehicles into a defensive arc, turning transport trucks into shields. Bullets ricocheted against metal. Dust and smoke burned their lungs. The air tasted like iron. One by one, trapped soldiers were pulled from cover and loaded into the convoy. Some limped, some were carried, so